Okay, let's do a quick overview of audio post, and I'll try to make it as easy as possible, even though it's a very complicated subject. These are cameras out in the field. They're shooting a television show. They have to find a way to sync all these cameras up so that they start and stop at the same time. And that's known as a black burst or a master clock. And it basically generates SMPTE time code. SMPTE is going to be at every stage in the audio post workflow. And this is an example of a window burn where the actual time of the camera shoot is burned into the picture and it gets removed later. But this stands for hours, minutes, frames, seconds. So that's something we're going to see all the time. And oftentimes there'll be a location sound guy and he's recording all this stuff. He's taking a SMPTE input from timecode input there. So he starts and stops at the same time. Then he's got all the microphones, the lavaliers and the boom mics and everything going into a mixer and recorded. Then all this stuff gets piled into a truck and given to an assistant editor who gets it all ingested into a Final Cut or an Avid video edit bay. And they start out with a rough cut and they start looking at a picture and they go on back and forth. And after 5-6 minutes, basically they get down here after they run out of money with a final, what's called a locked picture. And sometimes they go over and get graphic shots and back and forth like this. And on this other side, there's sound and music. And that's where we come in. Even on the first cut or something, you would be asked maybe to record a voiceover and send it back, or ADR is automatic dialogue replacement. We'll do a little lesson on that later. And sound effects are adding sound effects, drive-bys and chicken squawks and all different things to serve the picture. Same with Foley. Foley is actually just recording guy typing on a keyboard and, a Foley artist makes those type of sounds. And then there's lots of music editing here. This would be temp music, and temp tracks are, just music that the video guys are editing to, but they don't have rights to use. So you going back and forth with, filling in music and stuff, and then sometimes you'll have to give a music thing to the composer. Usually not. Usually the composer gets all this stuff from the video editor, and he comes up with a final music score. Where you have to come in then is sometimes there's holes in the picture, or they added a few frames to a shot and there's no music, and so you kind of doctor and fill in the music score and do a little fill in there. The very last thing is all this stuff goes to a final mix or the dubbing stage, and in our case it would just be we would be doing the final mix in Pro Tools, and that's 9 times out of 10 that's pretty much the case. But in case you have to do a big film or something like that, here's how that looks. They go to a final dub stage, and that looks like a theater. It's got a big screen, just like a theater, and the speakers are calibrated, and they have a giant console that's longer than your house. And they've got 5 teams of guys that are just working those faders, and they basically work their way through the entire picture, a scene at a time, 5 minutes, 3 minutes at a time, and they re-record the whole soundtrack to a layback machine. It's called being a re-recording mixer. That's what these guys are. And once they get that final mix, there's other things that have to be done. And say even here, if you're just in Pro Tools, when you get the final mix and the guy approves it, you're still oftentimes not done. You'll have to do other various edits and mixes. And anytime you see the word layback, that means that your Pro Tools rig is actually going to be slaved to a tape machine via what? SMPTE. And you hit the space bar, the tape machine plays. You hit the stop bar and it stops. That's a layback. And sometimes you have to give a print master, take your files and put them onto D88, so they can be manufactured in Portugal or some crazy deal. That would be a print master. Then oftentimes you have to take the final mix and break it all down again, just dialogue, just voiceover, just music, and create what's known as stems for the promo department. And these guys, cut trailers and weekly promos and webisodes and stuff, and they also misspell words, I notice. Okay, so then the last thing would be M&Es, music and effects. So, it's basically taking all the English language out, and, mixing all that, making a bounce of that, stemming all that out, putting it to a tape machine and sending it to China for their version of it. Foreign language dubbing, it's called. And we get into all that, but that's the overview, and it's actually going to be a lot of fun. So let's get started.